Hello, welcome to OJ Studios. Please enjoy this week's story, Changed, by Olivia Julius.
Chapter 1: The Snap. It started with me teasing my sister. She came downstairs in this frilly skirt with bows on the sides and a ruffled blouse, twirling like she was on some kind of fashion show runway. I couldn't help laughing. "Wow," I said. "You look so girly. Like, way too girly. I'd never wear something like that." She shot me a glare, crossing her arms. "It's cute. You're just jealous." "Jealous? No way," I smirked. "That stuff's for girls. Not for me. I'll stick with jeans and t-shirts, thanks." That's when I realized Mom was standing in the doorway, arms folded, smiling just a little too much. "Oh?" she said, tilting her head. "And what's so funny about your sister wearing girly clothes?" I shrugged. "Because I'd never wear them. They're girly, that's all. Boys don't wear that kind of stuff." Mom's smile widened. She raised her hand, snapped her fingers, and everything changed. I blinked, and the world around me seemed to ripple like a stone hitting water. My t-shirt melted into a puff sleeve top with lace trimming, my jeans tightened and shrank into a skirt that brushed against my knees. Even my sneakers shifted into shiny flats. I stumbled forward, grabbing at the fabric, my face going hot. What happened?" I gasped. Mom just looked at me calmly, like nothing was unusual. "Well, they do now," she said, her voice smooth and certain. "In fact, this is what boys have always worn. Isn't that right?" The strange part was the way the house itself seemed to agree with her. The pictures on the walls shifted, photos of me in dresses, me in skirts, me smiling at the camera with my sister like it was all perfectly normal. My stomach dropped as I stared at them. I looked down at myself again. A skirt! A girly top! Even my legs felt exposed, bare in a way I wasn't used to. My sister giggled, covering her mouth. "Looks good on you," she teased. I shook my head, trying to fight the lump in my throat. This isn't right." But as I looked around, I realized no one else seemed to think so. To them, this was reality. And maybe now, it was. I didn't wait for Mom to explain anything else. My cheeks burned, and I bolted up the stairs 2 at a time, the skirt of my new outfit brushing against my legs in a way that made me want to crawl out of my skin. I shoved open my bedroom door and froze. My room wasn't my room anymore. The walls, once covered with posters of video game characters and sports teams, were now painted a soft, glowing pink. The ceiling fan had frilly ribbons tied around the pulled chain, and my rug was gone, replaced with a fuzzy white one that looked like it belonged in some princess movie. I staggered forward, my eyes darting everywhere. My shelves no longer held action figures or toy trucks, they were lined with dolls, stuffed animals, and rows of glittery trinkets. Even my desk was different, littered with hairbrushes, perfume bottles, and journals with sparkly covers. "No, no, no," I whispered. My heart thudded as I yanked open my closet door. Instead of jeans and hoodies, racks of skirts and dresses swayed gently, like they were mocking me. Every hanger held something with lace or bows or pastel colors. There were even swimsuits hanging there, sleek one-pieces and bikinis in every shade of pink, purple, and turquoise. And the worst part? My brain told me these were boys' clothes. I could feel it, like the world itself was insisting. Dresses weren't girly anymore, they were just normal. Pants were the strange thing now, something boys weren't supposed to wear at all. I stumbled back, pressing a hand to my head. My room looked like it belonged to someone else, some other kid entirely. But the smiling faces in the framed photos on my dresser, photos of me in skirts, me in dresses, me at the beach in a one-piece swimsuit, said otherwise. This was my life now. And I was the only one who knew it used to be different. I backed away from the closet, my stomach in knots, and wandered over to the window. Maybe if I looked outside, I'd see something normal. Something that would prove all of this was just a weird dream. But when I pulled the curtains aside, my heart nearly stopped. Out on the sidewalk, a little boy, probably no older than 7, was skipping happily down the road. His hair was cut short, and he was definitely a boy. But he was wearing a pink dress with puffed sleeves and a flared skirt that bounced with every skip. White tights covered his legs, and shiny Mary Janes clicked against the pavement. He twirled in a circle, humming to himself, like nothing about it was strange. A woman, his mom, I guessed, followed a few steps behind, carrying his shopping bag. She looked so proud, smiling as if her son was the cutest thing in the world. I pressed my forehead against the glass, whispering under my breath, "No way! No way!" But it wasn't just him. Across the street, two older boys were tossing a ball back and forth, both of them wearing pleated skirts with collared blouses. A group of kids rode past on bikes, their dresses fluttering in the wind. The whole neighborhood looked completely normal. Except their normal was upside down compared to the one I remembered. My knees felt weak. I couldn't stop staring at the boy in the pink dress, skipping so freely, like there was nothing embarrassing about it at all. He didn't even realize how strange it was supposed to be. Maybe he couldn't realize it. Because in this world, boys wore dresses, and apparently, so did I. I tore my eyes away from the window and sat heavily on the edge of my bed, burying my face in my hands. My heart was racing, and no matter how much I told myself it couldn't be real, everything felt too solid, too alive, too permanent. A soft knock came at my door. Before I could answer, Mom pushed it open and stepped inside. She looked so calm, like nothing was wrong at all, like her son hadn't just watched the whole world flip upside down. "Sweetheart," she said gently, "I know you're confused. But you don't need to be scared." I lifted my head, glaring at her. "Scared? You snapped your fingers, and now everything's wrong. Boys don't wear skirts or dresses. They don't." Her smile didn't waver. She walked over, smoothing her hand over the pink comforter on my bed before sitting beside me. "That's just it, though. Boys can. And girls can too. Everyone can. Pants, skirts, dresses, it doesn't matter anymore. There are no rules that say boys can't wear what you think of as girly clothes." I blinked at her, shaking my head. "But it's weird. It feels wrong." "Only because you've been stubborn about it," she said softly. "Your sister puts on a dress and you tease her, as if it makes her less. But now you're wearing one too, and you see that it doesn't change who you are. It's just clothes." I swallowed, my throat tight. "So this is it? Forever?" She chuckled and brushed a strand of hair off my forehead. "Not forever. But I think it'll be fun for you to live in this reality for a little while. Just long enough for you to get a firm grasp on it. To understand that there's nothing shameful about skirts, or dresses, or swimsuits that cover your chest. Once you've learned that lesson, maybe we'll talk about changing things back." I looked down at the ruffles on my blouse, at the way the skirt flared over my knees. It felt impossible. But when I glanced out the window again and saw the boy in the pink dress skipping along without a care in the world, I wondered, maybe Mom was right. Maybe I was the only one making this harder than it needed to be. Mom let me sit in silence for a while. Her hand rested on my shoulder, light and steady, like she was waiting for me to calm down. Eventually, she tilted her head and asked, "So, what would you like to do today?" I stared at the floor, kicking at the fuzzy white rug with the toe of my shiny flat. "I don't know. Nothing, I guess. I just want to stay here. Inside." Her brows lifted. "Inside? Why?" I bit my lip, not wanting to admit it out loud. Finally, I muttered, "Because I don't want people seeing me like this. I don't even know how to be in this world, it's too weird." For a second, I thought she'd understand. That she'd nod and let me crawl under my new pink comforter until this all went away. But instead, she just smiled, calm, knowing, a little mischievous. "Well," she said softly, standing and walking over to my closet, "if you can't make up your mind, we'll do it my way." I sat up straighter. "Your way?" She flipped through the row of clothes like she was choosing between ties and slacks, not skirts and ruffles. Finally, she pulled out a breezy sundress, pale yellow with cap sleeves and little flowers embroidered along the hem. She laid it carefully across my bedspread. Then, without missing a beat, she crossed the room to my dresser, opened the top drawer, and pulled out something folded and shiny. When she shook it out, my stomach dropped. A purple one-piece swimsuit! She set it down beside the sundress and patted the bed. "There we are," she said cheerfully. "Get dressed, sweetheart. We're going to the pool." I blinked at her, my mouth dry. The pool?" "Yes," she said, like it was the most obvious thing in the world. "It'll be good for you. Fresh air, exercise, friends. And everyone else will be dressed just like you, so there's nothing to be afraid of." I stared at the sundress, then at the swimsuit, the purple fabric catching the light. My chest felt tight. Going outside like this was the last thing I wanted. But from the look on Mom's face, I knew she wasn't giving me a choice. I stared at the bed, the sundress, the purple one piece, both waiting for me like a test I couldn't pass. My hands trembled as I picked up the swimsuit. The fabric felt slick and stretchy, nothing like the rough shorts and trunks I remembered. I stepped into it slowly, one leg at a time, the material hugging tight around my thighs as I pulled it up. My breath came shallow as I worked it past my waist and over my stomach. Then I tugged the straps up over my shoulders. They snapped into place with a snug fit that pressed against my chest, covering me completely. I turned toward the mirror and sighed. No matter how much this world said otherwise, I knew it was a girl's swimsuit. The way it clung to me, the way it shaped me, it was the opposite of what I used to think a boy was supposed to wear. But now this was all there was. I picked up the sundress next. Slipping it over my head, I felt the soft fabric fall over the swimsuit, swishing gently around my knees. I pulled it into place, smoothed it down, and looked at myself again. A boy wearing a dress. That's what I saw. My hair, my face, my body, it was still me. Still a boy. But the clothes were all wrong. And yet, in this reality, this was what boys looked like. Dresses. Skirts, swimsuits that covered their chests. It was normal now. I pressed my lips together, not sure if I wanted to laugh or cry. Taking a deep breath, I opened my bedroom door. Mom was waiting right there in the hallway, smiling like she'd known exactly how this would go. My throat tightened, and the words tumbled out before I could stop them. "Why can't I wear swim trunks? Why do I have to wear this?" Her smile didn't fade. She crouched down a little so her eyes met mine. "Because there is no such thing as swim trunks now, sweetheart. They don't exist." I shook my head, my voice low. But boys don't show their chests." "Exactly," she said warmly, brushing a wrinkle from my sundress. "Just like girls in your old reality. It would be improper. Everyone covers up at the pool, and swimsuits like yours make sure of that. This way, boys and girls are the same, equal." I swallowed hard, glancing down at the purple straps of the swimsuit peeking out from under the sundress. Equal. That's what she called it. But it didn't feel equal to me. It felt like I'd lost something I wasn't sure I'd ever get back. Mom rested a hand on my shoulder and gently steered me out of the room. My skirt swayed as we walked, the soft fabric brushing my knees with each step. The sound of my flats clicking against the stairs made my stomach twist. I never thought I'd hear my own feet making that sound. At the bottom of the stairs, my little sister was waiting in the living room. She was sitting cross-legged on the couch, humming to herself while braiding the hair of a doll in a bright blue dress. She looked up when she saw me, her face lighting up. "You look nice!" she chirped, as if there was nothing strange at all about her big brother in a sundress with a swimsuit hidden underneath. I froze halfway down the stairs. Something clicked in my head. She didn't look surprised. She didn't laugh at me the way I had laughed at her earlier. To her, this was normal. That's when it hit me, my sister hadn't come from the old reality like I had. She only knew this one. A world where boys always wore dresses and skirts, where no one thought it was weird. I swallowed, my voice cracking. She doesn't remember. She doesn't even know what it used to be like. Mom's hand squeezed my shoulder. That's right. I made sure of it. I turned to her, my chest tight. Why? Why would you do that? Her smile was calm, patient, like she was explaining something simple. Because I didn't want her to feel teased. Or left out. This way, everyone is the same. You don't have to make fun of her clothes anymore, and she doesn't have to feel different. It's better this way, comfortable for everyone. I glanced back at my sister, who had gone right back to her doll, humming cheerfully. She had no idea there was ever anything else. No idea she was supposed to look at me in confusion. No! In her eyes, I looked exactly the way a boy was supposed to look. My stomach churned as I looked between Mom and my sister. She was still humming, still lost in her own little world, like nothing was out of place. To her, I was just another boy in a sundress. Mom gave my shoulder a gentle pat. Now, she said, her tone light but firm, enough moping. We're not staying cooped up inside all day. Both of you, go get your things. We're heading to the pool. My sister's eyes lit up. She hopped off the couch, her doll tumbling onto the cushions. Yay! Pool day! She twirled once in her skirt and ran upstairs, her bare feet thumping against the steps. I just stood there, frozen. My hands tugged nervously at the hem of the sundress, and I could feel the swimsuit clinging underneath, snug and inescapable. The thought of stepping out into the sun like this, of being seen by everyone, made my chest tighten. But Mom was already picking up the pool bag by the door, humming to herself as if all of this were perfectly ordinary. To her, it was. To my sister, it was. And if I wanted to survive this new reality, maybe I'd have to pretend it was for me too. Chapter 2, The Pool. The car rumbled to a stop, and Mom shifted it into park. I stared out the window, my hands clenched tight in my lap. The pool stretched out in front of us like a water park paradise, slides twisting into the air, kids splashing in the shallow end, lifeguards perched in tall white chairs. But what made my stomach knot wasn't the water. It was the people. Everywhere I looked, boys and girls, men and women, were dressed in the same kinds of swimsuits. One-piece suits with bright colors and shiny fabric. Bikinis with bows and ruffles. Cover-ups that looked like sundresses, skirts, and breezy tops. It was like someone had raided the girls' swimwear section of the old world and decided it was the only section now. A group of teenage boys jogged past the car, laughing as they shoved each other toward the gates. Two wore bikinis, the straps tied in bows behind their necks. The third had on a bright green one-piece with a low back. None of them looked embarrassed. They were too busy talking about which slide to go on first. Then I spotted a man, definitely a dad, carrying a toddler on his hip. He was wearing a sleek navy one-piece that looked just like the ones I used to think only Olympic women wore. Behind him, another man adjusted the straps of his red bikini like it was the most normal thing in the world. A tiny laugh slipped out of me before I could stop it. It was ridiculous, grown men in bikinis, boys in dresses, everyone acting like it was totally fine. The sight made something in my chest want to burst out laughing. But I caught myself, biting the inside of my cheek. If I laughed, Mom would know. My sister would know. They'd look at me like I was the weird one for finding any of this funny. So I swallowed it down, pressed my forehead to the window, and watched in silence as the world outside went on like it had always been this way. Mom shut off the car and turned toward us, her pool bag in her lap. "Ready?" she asked cheerfully. My sister squealed. Yes. She was already tugging at her seatbelt, practically bouncing in her dress. I just stared at the people outside, my chest heavy. Ready? Not even close. Mom slung a pool bag over her shoulder and led us out of the car. The summer sun hit me instantly, warm against my bare legs beneath the sundress, and I had to remind myself not to grab at the hem every 2 steps. My sister skipped happily at Mom's side, humming a tune, like this was the best day of her life. When we reached the entrance, I hung back while Mom went up to the counter. She chatted with the woman at the booth as she dug through her purse for money. I glanced to the side and froze. A group of boys my age came through the turnstiles, laughing and shoving each other the way boys always do, but what they were wearing made my stomach tighten. One wore a teal one-piece with a racerback style, the other a black suit with red stripes running down the sides. Both of them dripped water onto the concrete, their hair still damp, like they'd already been swimming. And the worst part? They acted completely casual. No embarrassment, no hesitation, no trying to cover themselves up. To them, this was just how things were. "Come on," Mom called, waving me forward. She handed our tickets to the worker and guided us through the turnstile. I swallowed hard and followed, the turnstile bar clunking against my hip as I stepped through. We crossed the pool deck until we reached a building off to the side with big blue letters painted over the doors, "Locker Room." I stopped dead in my tracks. My heart started pounding. Wait! Shouldn't there be a boys' locker room and a girls' locker room? Mom glanced at me with a puzzled look, then smiled knowingly. "There's only one now. Everyone uses the same. It's perfectly normal." Before I could argue, she took my hand and gently pulled me inside. The air was cool and smelled faintly of chlorine and soap. Rows of lockers lined the walls, and benches stretched down the middle. And just like she'd said, men and women, boys and girls all came and went, changing in the same space as if it were the most natural thing in the world. A boy no older than 6 wriggled out of a frilly dress, revealing a pink polka-dotted bikini underneath. Across from him, a teenage girl tied her hair up while pulling on a sundress over her damp one-piece. A man with a towel slung over his shoulders adjusted the straps of his bright purple suit, chatting casually with a woman next to him. My face burned hot, and I suddenly wished I could disappear. In this reality, nobody cared. Nobody thought twice about it. But to me, it felt like stepping into a dream I couldn't wake up from. Mom gave my shoulder a little squeeze. "Go on, sweetheart. Get changed. You'll be fine." I froze by the bench, clutching at the hem of my sundress like it was the only thing keeping me safe. All around me, people moved with an easy rhythm, unzipping bags, untying straps, slipping into swimsuits, as if it were nothing. Mom set the pool bag down on the bench and gave me a pointed look. "Go on! You'll feel better once you're changed." I swallowed hard, my palms sweaty. Slowly, I slipped my arms through the sleeves and tugged the sundress up over my head. The light fabric slid away, leaving me standing there in nothing but the purple one-piece swimsuit she'd picked out for me. I felt completely exposed. The straps tugged on my shoulders, the snug material hugged my chest and waist, and every part of me screamed, "This isn't right." I dared to glance around. Nobody even blinked. A couple of boys my age were pulling off their shorts to reveal shiny one-pieces underneath, chatting about which slide was fastest. Across the aisle, a man tied the side strings of his bikini bottoms without embarrassment, talking to his son who was wriggling into a ruffled cover-up. No one cared that I was in a girl's swimsuit. Because to them, it wasn't a girl's swimsuit at all. It was just a swimsuit. I stared at my reflection in the mirror across from the lockers. The purple fabric gleamed under the fluorescent lights, hugging me in ways trunks never had. I sighed, heat rising to my cheeks. This is me now. This is what a boy looks like here. Still, my stomach churned. I wrapped my arms across my chest instinctively, even though it was already covered. Mom's voice came from behind me, warm but firm. "See? Perfect! You fit right in. Nothing to worry about." I wanted to argue, to tell her everything about this felt wrong, but my throat closed up. Around me, the locker room buzzed with laughter and chatter. Everyone was normal except me. And as I stood there in that purple one-piece, I couldn't help thinking, maybe I'd never feel normal here. I followed Mom and my sister out of the locker room, my arms still folded across my chest like I was shielding myself from the spotlight. My flat slapped against the wet tile as we stepped through the doorway and onto the pool deck. The sunlight hit me instantly, hot and blinding. My heart pounded. This was it, this was the moment everyone would see me, the boy in the purple one-piece, the mistake, the fraud. I braced myself for laughter, for stares, for whispers. But none of it came. People walked right past me without so much as a glance. A group of teenage girls in matching bikinis hurried toward the slides, chattering excitedly. Two boys about my age trotted by, their one-pieces dripping water onto the ground as they carried inflatable tubes. Even a dad in a striped swimsuit strolled past carrying a tray of nachos, too focused on balancing the food to care about anyone else. Nobody laughed. Nobody pointed. Nobody looked at me like I was out of place. I let my arms drop slowly to my sides, my breath catching. My purple swimsuit gleamed in the sun, but to everyone else it was nothing unusual. Just another color, another style among dozens. Not a girl's swimsuit. Not a joke. Just a swimsuit. I stood there, frozen, trying to process it. All the fear I'd been clutching onto didn't match what was happening around me. No one thought I looked silly. No one thought I looked wrong. Because in this world, I didn't. Mom gave me a reassuring smile, resting a hand on my shoulder. "See? I told you! Nothing to be afraid of." I swallowed hard and nodded, though the knot in my stomach didn't loosen. If anything, it tightened. Because even though no one else thought twice about me, I couldn't stop thinking about me. I was still standing stiffly on the pool deck, trying to convince myself that no one cared, when I heard a voice call my name. I turned, and my stomach did a flip. It was two of my friends from school, Ethan and Mariah. Ethan grinned as he jogged up, water dripping from his short hair. He was wearing a bright pink floral tankini, the kind of thing I would have sworn no boy would ever touch back in the old reality. The top clung to him, the hem brushing just above the matching bottoms. He didn't look embarrassed in the slightest. In fact, he looked happy, like it was the most natural thing in the world. Beside him, Mariah walked more calmly, brushing a damp strand of hair out of her face. She wore a light blue one-piece patterned with little white daisies, the straps tied neatly over her shoulders. I remembered her being kind of a tomboy, always racing the boys at recess or climbing the jungle gym higher than anyone else. I found myself wondering, was she still that way here? Or did this reality make her different, more girly, even when the boys were dressed like this too? "Hey!" Ethan said brightly. "We were just about to hit the water slides. You coming?" Mariah smiled and nodded. "Yeah, it's way too hot to just stand around. Come on!" I hesitated, shifting on my feet. My throat tightened. Back in the old reality, Ethan had laughed with me when we joked about Mariah having to wear a frilly dress to a wedding once. He acted like it was the most hilarious, awful thing a girl could be forced to do. And now here he was, standing in front of me in a pink floral tankini, like it was no big deal. My chest burned with the unfairness of it. They didn't remember. Neither of them did. To them, this wasn't strange. To them, I wasn't strange. But to me? It still felt like I was trapped in someone else's skin. Ethan tilted his head. "Well? You coming or not?" Mariah crossed her arms, smiling faintly. "Don't tell me you're too chicken." I forced a weak smile, my stomach twisting. I wanted to say yes. I wanted to be normal. But every step toward that slide felt like it would drag me further from the world I used to know. I swallowed hard and forced my feet to move. "Okay. Sure," I muttered, my voice barely above the roar of the pool. Ethan grinned, clapping me on the shoulder, water droplets spraying onto my arm. "That's the spirit! Come on, the tall blue slide is the fastest." Mariah smirked as if she'd known I'd give in. She jogged ahead of us, her daisy-patterned swimsuit flashing in the sun. I followed, each step making my legs feel weaker and lighter all at once. Maybe if I pretended this was normal, it would start to feel normal. As we wove through the crowds, more details jumped out at me, things that would have been impossible back in the old world. A lifeguard in a frilly sundress blowing her whistle. Two dads sitting in lounge chairs, both in bikinis, sipping sodas from tall straws. A group of younger boys darting past, their skirts swishing as they ran toward the kiddie pool. Nobody thought twice about any of it. And then my eyes caught on the giant billboard just outside the pool's fence. It showed a man in his 20s, tall and smiling confidently, his hands in the pockets of a soft pink sundress with puffed sleeves. The dress looked exactly like something my sister might wear to church, but on him it looked perfectly natural, like an everyday outfit. Next to him was a bold tagline in blue lettering. Clothes for boys and girls, because style has no boundaries. Below the words was a logo for some clothing company I didn't recognize, a swirl of fabric with the name Brightwear under it. I stopped for half a second, staring at it, my chest tight. It wasn't just kids. It wasn't just swimsuits. It was everything. This world had been rewritten from the ground up, and I was the only one who remembered that billboards should have looked completely different. "Come on, Slowpoke!" Ethan called from the bottom of the stairs leading up to the slides. Mariah was already climbing, laughing as water splashed down from above. I tore my eyes away from the billboard and hurried after them, forcing myself to smile even though my heart felt heavy. Maybe if I kept moving, maybe if I kept playing along, I'd forget just how wrong it all was. The steps up to the slide were slick with water, the metal rails warm under the sun. I climbed slowly behind Ethan and Mariah, my heart pounding, not just from nerves about the drop, but from the constant reminder of the swimsuit clinging to me. Every tug of the straps against my shoulders, every stretch of the purple fabric over my chest, felt like a neon sign flashing, "You don't belong here." But Ethan and Mariah didn't notice. They laughed and pushed each other, talking about who'd scream the loudest at the bottom. Mariah leaned over the rail once, pointing out kids splashing in the shallow pool. Ethan yelled something about racing down the slide side by side. Neither of them even blinked at what they were wearing, or what I was wearing. When we finally reached the top, the lifeguard motioned us forward. She was tall, with a whistle around her neck and a bright green swimsuit peeking out from under a white cover-up. She barely looked at us before waving Ethan toward one chute and me toward the other. "Ready?" Ethan called, grinning as he sat down. I hesitated, staring at the rushing water ahead of me. This wasn't just a slide. It was a choice: play along, or stand out. I sat down, the cool water swirling around my legs, the hard plastic beneath me slick with spray. My swimsuit clung tighter as the current pressed against me. "Go!" the lifeguard barked, and before I could stop myself, I pushed off. The world blurred into rushing blue. Water sprayed into my face, the tunnel twisting, my body slamming from side to side as gravity yanked me down. I gasped, half in fear, half in exhilaration. For a few breathless seconds, I wasn't thinking about the swimsuit. I wasn't thinking about skirts or dresses or the billboard outside. I was just flying. Then, with a final whoosh, I burst out of the tunnel and hit the pool with a splash that swallowed me whole. The water was cool, bubbling around me as I surfaced with a gasp. My hair clung to my forehead, my chest heaved, and for the first time since Mom snapped her fingers, I laughed. A real laugh. Loud and unguarded. Ethan popped up beside me, whooping as he shook water from his eyes. Mariah came down a moment later, kicking to the surface with a triumphant grin. "That was awesome!" Ethan shouted, splashing water in my direction. I grinned back, the laughter still bubbling in my chest. For a brief, shining moment, it almost felt like none of this mattered, that maybe I could just enjoy myself like everyone else. But as the water settled around me, I felt the cling of the swimsuit again. The way the fabric hugged my body so tightly, stretching across my chest, tugging at my shoulders. Even underwater, the straps didn't let me forget what I was wearing. I kicked my legs and winced, subtly tugging at the edge of one leg hole. The suit had shifted as I shot down the slide, riding up in a way trunks never would have. I wriggled a little, trying to adjust it without drawing attention, cheeks burning even though no one was watching. One pieces are so weird, I thought. Weird and snug and impossible to ignore. Ethan splashed me again, laughing, and Mariah darted between us, starting a playful water fight. I forced myself to join in, even as the swimsuit clung to me like a second skin. Because for now, no matter how strange it felt, this was the world I had to live in. Chapter 3: The Locker Room Again. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of splashing, sliding, and laughter. Ethan and Mariah pulled me into game after game. Who could hold their breath the longest, who could make the biggest splash, who dared to race down the highest slide. For a while, I forgot to think. I forgot to tug at my straps or worry about the way my swimsuit clung. I just laughed with my friends, the water washing everything else away. But it didn't last forever. Sweetheart! I turned to see Mom standing on the edge of the pool, waving her arm high in the air. My sister was beside her, already wrapped in a towel with her hair dripping down her shoulders. "Time to get out," Mom called. "We're going to the mall before we head home." My stomach twisted. The mall? Dressed like this? Ethan swam closer. "Guess that's you," he said with a grin. "See you at school?" "Yeah," Mariah added, flicking water at me with her fingers. "Don't chicken out next time, blue slide, top row." I managed a weak smile and waved. "Yeah! See you guys!" As they went back to their games, I hauled myself out of the pool, water dripping down my swimsuit, and walked to Mom. She draped a towel over my shoulders and patted my back. "Come on! Let's get you changed!" The walk back to the locker room felt longer than before. The sounds of splashing and laughter faded behind me as the cool, tiled room swallowed us up. Mom guided me to a row of stalls and pressed the pool bag into my hands. "Go on," she said gently. "Get changed. We'll be waiting." I slipped inside and closed the door, my hands trembling as I peeled the wet swimsuit from my skin. The straps tugged before finally snapping free, and I dropped the whole damn thing into a pile at my feet. Kneeling, I unzipped the bag. My stomach dropped when I saw what was waiting inside. The sundress I'd worn earlier, folded neatly on top. Beneath it, a pair of soft underwear, pastel-colored with a little bow on the waistband. They looked exactly like the panties my sister wore. But my head whispered something else: "This is boys' underwear now." I sat there staring, my heart thumping in my ears. No trunks! No boxers! No escape! Just dresses, swimsuits, and underwear that this reality insisted were mine. I stared down at the underwear, my hand hovering over the folded fabric. My throat felt tight, like the air itself was pushing back against me. They were soft, delicate, girly. At least, that's what every part of me screamed. But this world whispered something different, that they were just boys' underwear. Normal. Ordinary. The kind of thing every boy wore without thinking twice. But I could not think about it. With a shaky breath, I picked them up. The fabric felt thin and smooth between my fingers, so different from the boxers I remembered. For a second I just sat there, staring at them in my lap, hoping Mom would somehow change her mind and bring me something else. She didn't. Finally, I stepped into them, pulling them up one leg at a time. The waistband snapped lightly against my skin, fitting snugly and close. I winced. They don't feel like mine, I thought. They'll never feel like mine. Next was the sundress. I unfolded it slowly, the pale yellow fabric spilling across my knees. It looked so small, so light compared to the weight pressing on my chest. I held my breath and slipped it over my head. The fabric slid down my arms and shoulders, settling against me with a gentle swish. The skirt brushed my thighs as I tugged it into place, the bow at the waist laying neatly without effort. I stood there in the stall for a long time, staring at the tiny gap where the door didn't quite meet the frame. My reflection in the meadow latch caught my eye, a boy, in a sundress, in soft underwear that weren't supposed to be his. But they were! In this reality, they were! I sighed, pressing a hand against my stomach. Everything about it felt wrong, but the world insisted it was right. And maybe the scariest part was how easy the clothes fit, how my body didn't fight them, how natural they looked once they were on. "It's just a dress," I told myself. "It's just underwear. Just clothes." But deep down, I knew it was more than that. I sat back down on the little bench, the hem of the sundress falling neatly over my knees. My hands twisted the fabric, wringing it like a towel. How long was Mom going to keep this up? She'd said it wasn't forever, that it was just so I could get a firm grasp on things. But what did that mean? A day? A week? A whole summer? Every hour I spent in this reality seemed to erase the old one a little more. My sister already didn't remember. My friends acted like this was normal. Everyone around me was living their lives without a flicker of doubt. So why was I the only one stuck between two worlds? I looked down at myself again, the pale yellow sundress, the snug underwear, the memory of the swimsuit still clinging to my skin. I swallowed hard. What if Mom never changes it back? The thought made my chest tighten, my pulse pounding in my ears. I pressed my palms against my face, trying to steady my breathing. She said it was for my own good. She said it would be fun. But what if this was her idea of fun, watching me squirm in lace and bows until I stopped fighting it? I stayed in that stall a little longer, listening to the sounds of the locker room around me, doors slamming, voices laughing, showers running. Everyone else moved so easily in this world, slipping into their clothes without hesitation. Meanwhile, I sat frozen, wondering just how far Mom was willing to let this go. And whether I'd have any say in when it ended. I finally stood, smoothing down the sundress with clammy hands. My fingers hovered on the stall latch, but I hesitated, my heart thudding in my chest. Through the crack in the door, I caught sight of another boy at the row of lockers. He was about my age, humming to himself as he pulled a light pink dress over his damp swimsuit. He didn't rush, didn't blush, didn't glance around to see if anyone was watching. He just slipped his arms through the sleeves and gave a satisfied tug at the hem before stuffing his wet swimsuit into a bag. For him, it was as casual as pulling on shorts and a t-shirt used to be for me. I stared, my throat dry. That's what Mom wanted me to become, someone who didn't think twice, someone who could hum while pulling a dress over his head without a flicker of doubt. I bit my lip, then turned the latch with a soft click. The door swung open, and I stepped out, adjusting the skirt with a sigh. Mom and my sister were waiting by the benches, the pool bag already zipped up. My sister smiled when she saw me, like I looked exactly how a boy was supposed to look. "Ready?" Mom asked, her voice warm and calm. I nodded slowly, even though inside my chest was still full of questions I didn't dare ask. I nodded slowly, even though inside my chest was still full of questions I didn't dare ask. Mom smiled, slipping the pool bag over her shoulder, and my sister bounced at her side, still humming happily. We walked together toward the exit of the locker room, the sound of splashing water and laughter fading behind us. My sundress swished with every step, brushing against my legs, a constant reminder of just how different everything was now. I kept glancing down at myself, tugging at the hem, adjusting the bow at my waist, little things to make it feel less strange, even though it never really did. When the sunlight hit my face again, I realized something unsettling. No one outside would look at me twice. Not Mom. Not my sister. Not the strangers at the pool. To them, this was normal. To them, I was just another boy in a dress. And that thought followed me as we crossed the parking lot toward the car. Maybe the longer this went on, the harder it would be for me to remember what normal even used to mean. Chapter 4, The Mall. The car ride over was quiet, but my stomach churned the whole way. By the time Mom parked in front of the mall, my palms were sweaty against the fabric of my sundress. I slipped out of the car, the warm air brushing against my bare legs, and instantly felt exposed. Every step toward the glass doors made me want to tug the skirt lower. I kept expecting people to stare, to point, to laugh. But of course, they didn't. A group of boys about my age walked past, chattering about video games. Two wore plaid skirts with polo shirts tucked in, one had on leggings under a long tunic, and another wore a denim jumper with buttons down the front. None of them looked embarrassed. None of them acted like what they were wearing was strange. Some men passed too, one in skinny jeans with sequins on the pockets, another in a frilly top with cap sleeves and a lace hem. And sprinkled among them were a handful of guys in plain pants or casual shorts, but even they wore them with soft blouses or pastel shirts instead of anything I remembered as boyish. It was like Mom hadn't just blended the lines, she tilted the whole world toward girly. Dresses, skirts, bows, leggings. Everywhere! I swallowed hard and followed her and my sister inside. The mall hit me like a tidal wave of color. Bright signs, mannequins in dresses, racks of shimmering fabric spilling into the walkways. The first store we passed was full of swimsuits, rows of one-pieces and bikinis displayed on headless mannequins labeled with smiling logos. Next door, a shop advertised kids' casuals, with shelves of skirts, overalls, and patterned tights all jumbled together. What stuck out most was the signs. Kids' clothes. Adult clothes. That was it. No boys section. No girls section. Nothing divided by gender at all. As we walked further, another storefront caught my eye and made my stomach flip. In the window was a huge poster of a wedding scene. Two figures stood at an altar, hands linked, gazing into each other's eyes. One was a woman in a flowing white gown. The other was a man, also in a wedding dress, his suit nowhere in sight. They both smiled so warmly, so lovingly, it was almost enough to make me forget how strange it was. Almost. I tore my eyes away, my cheeks hot. Every step deeper into the mall felt like I was slipping further into a world that wasn't mine, and yet, everyone else acted like it had always been theirs. Mom stopped in front of a store with big looping letters over the entrance, "Kids Formal Wear." Through the glass, I could see rows of mannequins dressed in clothes so fancy they made my sundress look like pajamas. Lace gowns with satin bows, dresses with layers of ruffles, sparkly bodices with flowing skirts that reached the floor. Every mannequin, whether it was shaped like a boy or a girl, or something elaborate, something way beyond casual. My chest tightened. Panic fluttered in my stomach. She's not really going to make me wear one of those, is she? Mom! My sister groaned, dragging out the word as she drew her head back dramatically. Do we have to be in here? It's just so formal. The way she said it made me blink. Back in the old reality, she would have lit up at the sight of so many frilly options. She was the girly one, the one I teased for twirling in skirts. Now she was scowling, her arms crossed tight, her face twisted with dread like this store was a punishment. It was strange, almost like our roles had swapped. Mom gave her a patient smile. We're just looking, sweetheart. Don't fuss. But my sister wasn't done. Ugh, I can't believe you're looking at dresses again. Can't I just wear, like, something plain? Without all the frills? I stared at her, stunned. She sounded almost tomboyish. Not in the way I remembered, because here, it wasn't about girly versus boyish. It was just her wanting something simpler. Mom leaned down toward me while my sister wandered ahead, pretending to examine a row of shiny dress shoes. She lowered her voice so only I could hear. She's what we call a plain fit kid, Mom explained softly. Not into ruffles or bows. Just likes simple things. Nothing wrong with that. I blinked up at her. Plain fit? Mom smiled knowingly. Mom! Some kids prefer plain styles, some love fancy, and some, she gave me a pointed glance, are what we call frill favoring. Frill favoring? I repeated, my face going hot. Yes, she said matter-of-factly. It's a compliment here. Just means you look wonderful in fancy things and enjoy them. Some boys are plain fit, some are frill favoring. Same with girls. It's all just style. Her words sank into me like stones. In my old reality, frill favoring would have just meant girly. But here it was normal, even praised. I glanced back through the glass at the mannequins in their sparkling gowns, at my sister sulking among the racks, and my stomach turned. If Mom had her way, I wasn't just going to wear plain dresses like the one I had on now. She was going to put me in something that made my sundress look basic. Mom's eyes sparkled as she sifted through the racks. My heart sank lower with each swish of fabric until she finally pulled one out with a triumphant smile. It was light purple, almost lavender, with short puffed sleeves. The skirt was layered with shimmering tulle that caught the light in delicate waves, and the bodice was covered in intricate lace with tiny beads sewn into the pattern. It looked like something straight out of a fairy tale wedding. My stomach twisted. Please no! Not that one! Before I could protest, a voice came from behind us. Oh, excellent choice! I turned to see a sales clerk approaching. He was a man, tall and neatly dressed, though not in the way I would have expected back in my old world. He wore a crisp white blouse tucked into a black pencil skirt that hugged his frame. His name tag gleamed under the store lights. He stopped in front of us, eyes fixed on the dress in Mom's hands. "That," he said with a smile, "is one of my favorites in the collection. I was hoping a beautiful boy would find it." He turned his gaze to me, and I felt my ears burn. "And I think it would look absolutely adorable on you." My jaw nearly dropped. Beautiful boy! Adorable! Words I never thought I'd hear aimed at me in the middle of a dress shop. Mom's smile widened. "He's definitely the one I had in mind." The clerk crouched a little so his eyes were level with mine. "Tell me, are you frow-favoring? Because if you are, this dress is practically perfect for you. The lace, the tulle, it'll make you shine. You look so cute." I stammered, my throat dry. I don't." But Mom answered for me, patting my shoulder. "He is." Behind us, my sister groaned. "Ugh! Seriously?" She crossed her arms and rolled her eyes, muttering under her breath, "Of course everyone's paying attention to him. Nobody cares what I want." I glanced at her, guilt twisting in my stomach. She looked away, scowling at a rack of plain button-down shirts tucked into the corner like they were trying to hide from all the frills. Meanwhile, the clerk straightened up, smoothing his skirt with a professional grin. "Well then," he said, "let's get you into the fitting room. Trust me, once you try it on, you'll see how wonderful it feels." I swallowed hard, staring at the lavender dress in Mom's hands. The lace and tulle shimmered under the lights, and all I could think was, this is really happening. I'm going to have to put it on. The sales clerk led us to the back of the store, the light purple dress draped carefully over his arm like it was made of glass. He gestured toward a row of fitting rooms, their mirrors gleaming under soft golden lights. "Here we are," he said warmly, handing the dress to Mom. "I'll give you a little privacy, but don't be shy, we love seeing how our outfits look when they come to life." Mom passed the dress into my hands. "Go on, sweetheart," she said softly, nudging me toward the door. I stepped inside, the little cubicle barely big enough for me in the dress. I sat it down on the chair, staring at it as if it might bite me. My stomach churned, and for a second I thought about refusing. About staying in my sundress and saying no. But my fingers were already fumbling with the hem, tugging it up over my head. The fabric slid away, leaving me standing in my plain fit underwear, hugging myself in the cool air. Outside, voices drifted through the thin walls. "You know," Mom said gently, "it would be nice if you picked out something, too." My sister groaned, loud enough that I could hear the frustration dripping off it. "Mom, no! I don't want anything super frow-favoring." The sales clerk chuckled politely. "That's perfectly fine, miss. We have plenty of styles, plain fit, casual, elegant. Not everything needs lace or tulle." "Good," my sister muttered. "Because right now I'm already wearing a skirt, and that's about as frow-favoring as I get." I froze halfway through unfolding the lavender dress, the fabric spilling like a waterfall over my arms. Hearing her say that jolted me. In the old reality, she would have been thrilled at the idea of frills, lace, bows, everything. She would have twirled in front of the mirrors, demanding compliments. Now she sounded like me. Like the old me. I shook the thought away and held the dress up against myself in the mirror. The lace glittered under the fitting room lights, the tulle puffing out in soft layers. It looked unreal, like it belonged on someone else entirely. But in a moment, it would belong on me. I slipped the lavender dress over my head, the cool fabric brushing against my arms as the bodice settled snugly over my chest. The tulle skirt puffed out around my legs, swishing softly when I moved. But when I reached back to grab the zipper, my fingers fumbled uselessly. No matter how I twisted, I couldn't get a grip. My heart thudded faster, of course it had to zip in the back. I cracked the dressing room door open and peeked out, my face hot. Mom?" She turned at once, her eyes lighting up when she saw me half hidden in the doorway. I can't get it," I admitted, tugging at the strap. "The zipper's stuck in the back." Her smile softened. "Oh, sweetheart!" She stepped over, and I opened the door wider. She turned me gently by the shoulder so my back was to her, then pulled the zipper all the way up with a smooth motion. "There we go," she said warmly, patting my arm. I turned back toward the mirror, and my breath caught. The dress hugged me perfectly, the lace sparkling under the lights, the tulle spilling around me like I'd stepped out of a storybook. I couldn't look away. I couldn't believe it was really me staring back. I swallowed. If I really lived in this reality, Mom, I don't think I'd want to be fro-favoring, it's just too much work. She chuckled softly, her smile teasing but kind. "Maybe. But you do look very pretty in this dress." Before I could answer, a voice floated from behind us. "Oh, he certainly does." I glanced over my shoulder. The sales clerk was watching from a few steps away, his smile warm and genuine. "You look as beautiful as a Disney prince." I blinked, startled. "A prince?" The words rattled around in my head. Pretty as a prince? I'd only ever heard people say pretty as a princess. The phrase caught me off guard, twisting the familiar into something new. I turned back to the mirror, studying my reflection again. The lace, the tulle, the soft shimmer of lavender. What did princes even look like in this world? Did they wear dresses, too? The thought made my stomach flip. I was still staring at myself, lost somewhere between disbelief and confusion, when the fitting room curtain rustled. My sister stepped inside, dragging her feet. In her hand dangled a plain navy dress, the kind with short sleeves and no decorations, so simple it looked out of place among all the glitter and lace around us. She held it by the hanger like it was something gross she'd been forced to pick up. She wrinkled her nose the moment she saw me in the mirror. "Ugh! I can't believe you're so embarrassing with your fro-favoring self!" She flipped the dress hanger with one finger, her voice dripping with annoyance. "Meanwhile, Mom's making me hold this!" I clenched my jaw, refusing to give her the satisfaction of a reaction. Instead, I focused on adjusting the bow at the waist of my dress, pretending to be too busy to answer. The skirt swished softly as I turned slightly, catching my reflection again. I looked like someone else, a boy in a dress that screamed for attention, while my sister looked like she'd rather vanish than admit she was even holding one. "Honestly," she muttered, dropping into a chair with a hanger across her lap, "I don't know how you can stand it. All that lace, all that fluff. It's ridiculous." I bit back a reply and just smoothed the tulle again, keeping my eyes on the mirror. Maybe if I ignored her, she'd stop. But inside, my chest twisted. She used to love this stuff in the old world, and now here she was acting like I was the strange one. The world was upside down. And I was stuck right in the middle of it. "Alright, that's enough," Mom said sharply, stepping into the fitting area before things could boil over. She folded her arms, her gaze landing firmly on my sister. "If you can't keep your comments to yourself, then I'll pick something for you." My sister sat up straighter, eyes narrowing. "What do you mean, something for me?" Mom's smile was calm, but there was a firmness underneath it. "I mean I'll put you in a pink lacy dress, one with puff sleeves and bows, and you'll wear it all day long. How does that sound?" My sister's face twisted in horror. "What? No way!" Mom raised a brow. "Try me!" For a moment, my sister glared, her mouth opening like she wanted to argue. But instead, she rolled her eyes hard enough to make her whole head tilt back, then huffed dramatically. "Ugh! Fine!" She slumped back into the chair, still holding the plain navy dress like it was radioactive. Mom gave a satisfied nod. "Good! Then let's keep the peace!" I smoothed the lavender tulle over my knees again, my heart still pounding. My sister sulked in silence, and Mom's smile returned like nothing had happened. And just like that, the bickering ended, though the knot in my stomach didn't. My sister kicked at the tiled floor as we moved deeper into the mall, her arms crossed tight against her chest. The hanger with the navy dress dangled from her hand like a weight she was dragging around. "I don't even know why you made me get this," she grumbled. "I'll probably never wear it. Skirts are as far as I go, Mom. That's it. That's as fro-favoring as you're ever going to get from me." Mom didn't miss a step. "You'll wear it when the occasion calls for it," she said evenly. My sister groaned, throwing her head back like the ceiling lights were the most annoying thing she'd ever seen. Occasions. Why can't I just wear something plain all the time? Skirts are fine. Dresses with ruffles? Nope. Never happening. I walked silently between them, my sundress swishing with each step. I couldn't help stealing a glance at her. In the old reality, she would have been thrilled about the navy dress, maybe even begged Mom for something more frilly. But here she was, practically disgusted by it. It felt so strange, like her whole personality had been flipped inside out. And meanwhile, Mom just smiled, carrying the lavender gown over her shoulder, as if she was more than happy to have one fro-favoring kid in the family, even if my sister refused to play the part. I kept my head down, silently grateful that the yellow sundress was all I had to deal with for now. The next store we entered was just as overwhelming as the last. Bright lights reflected off racks of dresses and skirts, the kids all practically glittering with bows, ribbons, and sequins. Mom took my hand, guiding me down one of the aisles. My heart sank as I realized it wasn't clothes this time, it was accessories. Rows of tights in every color imaginable hung neatly in plastic packages, next to them were sandals with sparkly straps, shining Mary Janes, ballet flats with little bows, and heels sized down for kids. It was like stepping into a section designed entirely for fro-favoring kids. Mom stopped and plucked a package from the rack. White tights. Plain but unmistakably fro-favoring. She turned and pressed them into my hands. "Here," she said matter-of-factly. "You'll need these." I stared at the package, the picture of a smiling boy in a pale blue dress and matching tights staring back at me from the front. Every instinct screamed at me to say I didn't want them. That I'd never wear them. But the words caught in my throat. If I ever wanted even a chance of getting back to my old reality, I knew I couldn't fight Mom on everything. So I just nodded and clutched the tights silently, my stomach twisting. Behind us, my sister snorted. Fro-favoring kids and their accessories. Seriously, what's next, tiaras? Mom's head snapped around so fast my sister froze. She raised a brow, then plucked another package of tights, this one of my sister's size, from the rack and dropped it into the basket. "Well," Mom said briskly, her voice sharp but with a smile tugging at her lips, "I guess we know what we're going to do for dinner tonight." My sister blinked. "What? What do you mean?" Mom's smile grew wider. "Let's put it this way. Tonight, I'm going to have two fro-favoring kids when we go out to eat." My sister's jaw dropped. She stared down at the package of tights in disbelief, like Mom had just declared war. I glanced at her, struggling not to laugh. Well, I thought, holding my own tights tighter against my chest, I guess my plain fit sister is going to be fro-favoring tonight. Mom stopped in front of another rack, her eyes scanning over the rows of frilly fabrics. My sister groaned audibly, already knowing what was coming. "You need a dress for tonight," Mom said firmly. "And it needs to be fro-favoring." My sister crossed her arms. "Mom, no! Skirts are as far as I'm willing to go. You can't make me wear one of those cupcake things." Mom ignored her protest and reached into the rack, pulling out a dress that sparkled like sunlight on water. It was the kind of dress that practically shouted fro-favoring, a light pink creation with sequins covering the bodice, short fluttery sleeves, and a skirt of tulle that shimmered with every movement. Mom held it up proudly, the dress glittering under the store lights. "This one," she declared. "Perfect for you!" My sister's face twisted like she'd just been told she had to eat a whole plate of broccoli. "You've got to be kidding me! Mom, I can't, there's no way I'm wearing that!" Mom's smile didn't waver. "You can, and you will! Tonight!" My sister's jaw dropped, and she shook her head, muttering under her breath. I glanced at the dress in Mom's hands and then at my sister, who looked like she wanted to sink through the floor. For once, it wasn't me. But I knew the look on her face, because I'd been wearing it all day. My sister backed up a step, her hands raised. "Mom, no way! You can't be serious! I am not trying that thing on!" Mom arched a brow, her voice calm but firm. "Oh, I'm very serious! You made fun of Fro favoring accessories earlier, remember? That earned you a turn. But... No buts, Mom interrupted, holding out the glittering pink dress. The sequins sparkled like they were laughing at her. Go! Fitting room. Now! I watched wide-eyed as my sister stood frozen, her face caught between outrage and disbelief. For once, she wasn't the one rolling her eyes at me, she was the one cornered. The sales clerk from earlier appeared again, smoothing his pencil skirt as he walked over. He smiled politely. Would you like a room? Yes, Mom said, handing him the dress. She needs to try this on. My sister groaned like she was being dragged to the gallows. This is so unfair, she muttered as the clerk led her to a stall. I don't even like frills. I couldn't help smirking a little as I leaned against a rack of sandals. Now you know how it feels, I thought. From behind the thin fitting room door came the sounds of rustling fabric, my sister's muffled complaints, and then a sharp sigh. Finally, the curtain pulled back. She stepped out in the pink, glittering dress. The sequin bodice sparkled under the lights, the tulle skirt puffing out around her knees. She crossed her arms, scowling so hard her face looked like it might stick that way forever. Mom beamed. Oh, honey, you look lovely! The sales clerk clapped his hands softly, his eyes bright. Absolutely radiant! Just the right balance of sparkle. Perfect for dinner! My sister's scowl deepened. I hate this! But no matter how much she protested, the truth was plain, she looked every bit the fro-favoring kid she swore she'd never be. I caught her eye and shrugged. Guess we're both stuck now. She glared at me, cheeks red. Shut up! Mom didn't let either of us argue further. With the sparkling pink dress draped over her arm, she marched us toward the shoe section at the back of the store. Rows of glossy shoes lined the shelves, sandals, Mary Janes, ballet flats, all shining under the fluorescent lights. She crouched to scan the options, her eyes narrowing in concentration. Then she pulled a pair of white sandals from the rack, the straps thin and delicate with little buckles at the sides. She held them up, turning toward me. These will go nicely with your new dress, she said. I swallowed hard and nodded, taking them without a word. The sandals felt so small on my hands, light and flimsy compared to the sneakers I used to know. Mom straightened and turned to my sister. And for you! She plucked a pair of pink Mary Janes from the shelf, glossy and round-toed with a bow across each strap. Perfect to match your new dress! My sister groaned, dragging her feet as Mom pressed the shoes into her arms. Seriously? Pink? Mary Janes? Mom's smile didn't budge. Yes! And you look lovely in them! With her choices made, she carried everything, the lavender gown in its bag, my sister's glittering dress, the 2 pairs of shoes, and even the tights, up to the cashier. The clerk rang it all up cheerfully, bagging the boxes and packages while Mom slid her card across the counter. Enjoy your evening, the cashier said with a smile, handing over the receipt. Mom gathered the bags and ushered us out of the store. My sister sulked, her arms crossed so tight she looked like she might fold in on herself. I trailed behind, clutching the bag with my sandals inside, the thought sinking deeper and deeper. Whatever was happening, it wasn't ending anytime soon. We stepped back out into the mall, the weight of the purchases pulling us toward the exit. By the time we reached the car, the bags filled the trunk and the reality of what Mom had planned for tonight felt heavier than ever. We climbed into the car, the trunk full of bags rustling with every bump as Mom started the engine. My sister slumped against her window, arms folded tight, glaring down at the pink Mary Janes on her lap like they were a punishment. I sat quietly, my own bag of white sandals resting against my knees. The hum of the engine filled the silence, and I stared out the window as the mall drifted away behind us. The further we drove, the heavier it all felt, the lavender gown, the sequin pink dress, the tights, the shoes. Mom had bought everything without hesitation, like it was just another errand. For her, this was normal. For my sister, it was torture. And for me? I tugged at the hem of my yellow sundress, the fabric swishing gently against my legs, and sighed. For me, It was a reminder that my old world was slipping further away with every mile. Chapter 6, Getting Ready. By the time we pulled into the driveway, my sister still hadn't stopped complaining. She dragged her bags inside like they were filled with bricks, grumbling the whole way. "I can't believe I have to wear this stupid glitter bomb of a dress," she moaned, holding the garment bag out in front of her like it might bite. "I'm going to look so fro-favoring, it's disgusting." Mom didn't flinch. "You look lovely, dear. Now go upstairs and get ready." She groaned again, stomping her way toward her room. I slipped off quietly to mine, the white sandals and the package of tights tucked under my arm, my sundress swishing with every step. When I closed the door, I laid everything out on my bed, the lavender dress Mom had bought earlier, the new tights, and the shiny sandals. My chest felt tight as I reached for the dress. I knew I'd need Mom's help with the zipper again, but I figured I could at least get it on by myself first. Then it hit me. I froze, staring at the unopened package of tights. I had no idea how to put them on. Boxers, shorts, pants, those I knew. But tights? Which way was front? Did I roll them? Step in? Pull them up like socks? I stared at the package like it was written in a language I couldn't read. With a groan, I grabbed the tights and cracked my door open. "Mom?" I called, my cheeks burning. I think I need help. With the tights." My sister's head popped out of her doorway instantly, her hair brushed in one hand. She smirked like she'd been waiting for this moment all her life. "Seriously? You don't even know how to put those on? You think a fro-favoring boy like yourself would already know." My face went hot. "Shut up," I muttered, but the words felt weak. Mom appeared at the bottom of the stairs, her expression sharp as she looked up at my sister. "That's enough, young lady." Her voice was firm in a way that made my sister duck back into her room, grumbling under her breath. Then Mom turned her gaze to me, her smile softening. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll help you." I clutched the package tighter, my stomach fluttering. This was really happening. Mom came up the stairs with a calm smile, her heels clicking lightly against the wood. She pushed my door open and stepped inside, closing it gently behind her. "All right," she said kindly, "let's get you sorted." She held out her hand, and I passed her the unopened package with trembling fingers. She tore it open easily, pulling out the long, thin shape of the white tights. They looked so delicate, almost see-through, the fabric pooling in her hands like a strange second skin. "First lesson," she said, crouching slightly to show me. "You don't just shove your feet in, that's how you'll rip them. You roll them down, nice and neat." She scrunched one leg of the tights into a little bundle, leaving just the toe of the fabric open. "See? Like this. Now, sit down." I sat on the edge of the bed, my hands gripping the mattress as she crouched in front of me. She held the tights open and nodded toward my foot. "Go ahead. Toes first." I slid my foot into the opening, the fabric stretching cool and snug over my toes and heel. She guided it gently up to my ankle, then stopped. "Now the other one." I slipped my other foot in, the tights clinging tighter the further they went. "Good," Mom said warmly. "Now stand up, sweetheart." I did, wobbling slightly as the rolled tights hugged both ankles. Mom stood too, rising gracefully as she took hold of the waistband. "Here's the tricky part," she explained. "You have to pull them up evenly, or they'll twist and feel awful." She tugged carefully, inch by inch, the white fabric climbing my calves, then my knees, then higher. The sensation was strange, snug, smooth, almost like a hug around my legs. Not at all like pants or socks. "There we go," Mom murmured, pulling the waistband up over my hips and giving it a little adjustment so it sat flat against me. "See? Not so hard." I glanced down. My legs looked completely different, pale and even, the tights smoothing out everything from my toes to my waist. I wiggled awkwardly, not sure what to do with myself. Mom smiled, brushing a wrinkle from the fabric. "Perfect fit! Now we can get you into your dress." I swallowed, staring at my legs one more time. This was really happening. Mom smoothed her hands once more over the tights, checking for twists, then turned to the lavender dress laid out neatly on the bed. The lace shimmered under the soft light, the tulle skirt puffing gently as she lifted it by the shoulders. "Alright, sweetheart," she said, holding it open. "Arms up." I hesitated, staring at the dress. Even after everything I'd already put on, this felt like the final step, like once it was zipped up, there'd be no denying what I looked like. But Mom's calm gaze urged me forward. Slowly, I lifted my arms, and she guided the dress down over me. The cool lining brushed against the tights as it slid past my hips, the bodice snugging into place against my chest. The tulle swirled out around my legs, bouncing softly when I shifted. "Turn around," Mom said gently. I did, my breath quickening as I felt her fingers find the zipper at my back. With one smooth pull, she zipped it up, the sound loud in the quiet room. The bodice tightened, hugging me firmly, and I suddenly felt the full weight of the dress settle into place. Mom gave my shoulders a reassuring squeeze, then guided me toward the mirror. I stopped cold. A boy stared back at me, but he was dressed like no boy I remembered from the old world. Lavender lace, layers of tulle, white tights peeking out above delicate sandals, it was all too much. Too frill-favoring. I turned to Mom, my voice small. "This is a lot. Too much work. I don't think I could ever live like this. If I really lived in this reality, I wouldn't want to be frill-favoring." Her smile was warm but teasing. "Maybe. But you do look very pretty in this dress." Before I could answer, the sales clerk's words from earlier echoed in my mind, "As beautiful as a Disney prince." I blinked at my reflection again, unsettled. Pretty as a prince? I'd never even imagined that phrase before. And suddenly, I wondered, in this world, what did the princes even look like? Mom's smile lingered as she adjusted the bow at the back of my lavender dress. Then she raised her voice toward the hallway. "Alright, honey. Time to get your dress on, we're leaving soon." For a moment, there was only the muffled sound of grumbling and the creak of a door. Then my sister stepped out of her room. She looked miserable. The pink dress glittered under the hallway light, the sequins on the bodice flashing with every reluctant step. The skirt puffed out with layers of tulle, brushing against the tops of her white tights. On her feet, the glossy pink Mary Janes gleamed with little bows strapped neatly across. She huffed, blowing a strand of hair out of her face. "I can't believe you're making me wear this," she muttered, glaring at Mom. Mom only smiled, clasping her hands together. "Oh, you both look wonderful." Then she waved us closer. "Come stand together. Let me see you side by side." I hesitated, my stomach tightening, but Mom gave me that look, the one that wasn't really a request. Slowly, I shuffled over until I was standing shoulder to shoulder with my sister. She scowled, arms crossed, but she didn't move away. Mom's eyes lit up, almost sparkling. "There! Look at you two! Both of my frill-favoring children, ready for a nice dinner!" I tried to force a smile, but inside my chest ached. My sister looked like she wanted to vanish, and I wasn't far behind her. But Mom just stood there, proud and glowing, like this was exactly how it was supposed to be. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe, for her, it really was. Mom clasped her hands once more, her smile wide and unshakable. "Perfect! Now grab your bags, both of you, we're heading out the door." My sister groaned again, her skirt puffing as she stomped toward the stairs. I trailed after her, the swish of lavender tulle brushing against the rustle of her glittery pink dress, both of us caught in the same trap. Behind us, Mom's voice was bright and proud, almost humming. "My frill-favoring children, all dressed up." The words followed me as we stepped toward the front door, and with every swish of fabric I wondered if I'd ever find my way back to the world I used to know. Chapter 7, On the Way. The car hummed as we pulled out of the driveway, the faint rattle of shopping bags in the trunk mixing with the sound of the tires on the road. I sat stiffly in the back seat, the lavender dress puffing up around me no matter how much I tried to smooth it down. My white tights hitched slightly against the seat, and I kept my hands folded tight in my lap. Next to me, my sister was fuming. "This is the worst," she muttered under her breath, glaring out the window at nothing in particular. "A frill-favoring dress! In public! Do you know what my friends are going to say when they see me in this? They're going to laugh their heads off!" She tugged angrily at the puffed pink skirt, her sequin bodice sparkling in the glow of the streetlights. "I'm going to get kicked off the basketball team for sure," she went on, louder this time. "They're gonna take one look at me and say, 'Oh, guess she's a frill-favoring cheerleader now.'" She spat the word like it was a curse. "Frill-favoring this, frill-favoring that, it's ridiculous." I glanced at her out of the corner of my eye. She looked like she wanted to crawl out of her skin, her arms crossed, her jaw tight. She was acting like frill-favoring was the worst insult in the world, like it meant her whole life was ruined. Part of me wanted to laugh, because for once, she was the one squirming while Mom insisted this was normal. But another part of me, the bigger part, knew exactly how she felt. Because I was sitting right there in my own frill-favoring nightmare. I leaned back against the seat, staring out the opposite window as my sister kept muttering beside me. Her complaints filled the car, but my mind drifted somewhere else. This morning, I never would have believed I'd be here, sitting in the backseat of Mom's car in a lavender dress with white tights hugging my legs, on my way to dinner like this was just a normal family outing. This morning, I'd woken up in a world where things were clear. Boys wore jeans, t-shirts, trunks. Girls wore dresses, skirts, blouses. The lines were sharp, and if a boy ever dared cross them, if he ever put on a dress, he'd be mocked until he wished he could disappear. And now here I was. I glanced sideways at my sister. She was yanking at the bow on her pink dress, scowling at her reflection in the window. She wasn't from my original reality. She had no memory of the world I'd lost. To her, boys and girls had always worn the same clothes. Anyone could wear a dress. Anyone could wear lace or tights or sequins. No one batted an eye. And yet, I still sympathized with her. Because even if dresses weren't strange here, even if everyone accepted them as normal, not everyone wanted them. Not everyone wanted to be frill-favoring, some kids just wanted plain fit clothes. Something simple, something that didn't make them stand out. I understood that better than anyone. So I sat in silence, the tool of my own dress brushing against her glittery skirt, and for once, I didn't feel the urge to laugh at her complaints. I just felt the same. The car settled into a heavy silence after that. My sister kept fiddling with her dress, huffing under her breath, but even she eventually gave up on complaining out loud. The only sounds were the low hum of the engine, the faint rattle of shopping bags in the trunk, and the steady thump of tires against the road. I pressed my forehead against the cool glass of the window, watching the world blur past. Streetlights flickered on one by one, glowing halos in the dusk. Families walked along sidewalks, kids skipping in dresses or leggings, adults in blouses and skirts. Not a single person seemed out of place, no matter what they were wearing. The car slowed, then turned, and my stomach twisted when I saw the glowing sign ahead. A restaurant, its parking lot full, laughter and clinking dishes spilling out the doors whenever they opened. Mom pulled into a space and shut off the engine. She turned to look at us in the back seat, her eyes bright with pride. "All right," she said, smoothing her own skirt as she unbuckled her seat belt. "We're here. Time to show off those beautiful outfits." My sister groaned audibly, slumping so far down in her seat she nearly disappeared. I stayed quiet, my hands clenched tight in my lap. The moment I'd been dreading all day had finally come, stepping out in public, dressed like this, with no way to hide. Mom led the way, her purse swinging lightly at her side as she walked toward the entrance. My sister trudged behind her, puffed pink skirt bouncing with every reluctant step. I followed last, my lavender tulle brushing against my tights, every swish of fabric making me more self-conscious. The moment the glass doors opened, a wave of warm air, chatter, and the smell of food washed over me. Families crowded the lobby, some waiting for tables, others already laughing over menus. And just like at the pool, no one even blinked at us. A boy about my age stood with his dad near the hostess podium, wearing a crisp white blouse tucked into a frilly lilac skirt, shiny shoes tapping against the tile as he fidgeted. Two teenagers walked past us toward the exit, both boys in matching sundresses, carrying to-go bags like it was the most normal thing in the world. To them, it was. The hostess, a young woman in a navy dress, smiled as soon as she saw us. "Party of 3? "Yes," Mom said, her voice smooth and proud. "Right this way," the hostess replied, grabbing menus and leading us into the dining room. I shuffled after her, my sandals clicking against the floor. My sister walked stiffly beside me, tugging at the hem of her dress every few steps. We were shown to a booth near the middle of the restaurant. Mom slid in on one side, motioning for me and my sister to sit together across from her. I sank into the seat, the tulle of my skirt puffing around me until I pressed it down. My sister slumped beside me with an exaggerated sigh. Mom opened her menu with a satisfied smile. "See? That wasn't so hard. Now let's enjoy dinner." I kept my eyes low, tracing the flowers embroidered on the hem of my skirt. Maybe for Mom it wasn't hard. Maybe for everyone else it wasn't strange. But for me, and from the look on my sister's face, for her too, every second in these dresses felt heavier than the last. Mom scanned her menu, her smile calm and proud. "You both look wonderful tonight," she said warmly. "The dresses really suit you." I kept my eyes low, fiddling with the edge of my skirt, not trusting myself to answer. My sister, though, leaned back in her chair with a groan. "Mom, stop! This is so embarrassing," she muttered. "You're acting like we're some kind of fro-favoring family photo shoot." Mom's smile didn't waver. "Sweetheart, there's nothing embarrassing about looking nice. You're beautiful." My sister rolled her eyes and slumped deeper into the booth. "Beautiful isn't my thing. Plain fit is my thing. You made me wear this." She tugged at the puff of her pink skirt for emphasis. I stayed quiet, half grateful that her complaints were keeping Mom distracted. But then my sister froze. Her eyes darted across the dining room, and she suddenly ducked down so low her head nearly vanished behind the menu. "Oh my God!" she whispered fiercely. "Mom! This is so embarrassing!" Mom sighed, not even looking up. "What now?" My sister peeked over the edge of the booth, her face pale. "It's Dylan! He's here! And I'm in this fro-favoring dress! He's gonna think I'm incompatible or something! He's gonna think I'm not a good fit!" At that, I looked up, curious. Across the restaurant, near the far wall, sat a boy about my sister's age. His blonde hair fell neatly over his forehead, and he wore a soft pink dress with a full skirt that shimmered as he shifted in his seat. He looked confident, comfortable, like he belonged in it completely. And from the way my sister ducked back down, her cheeks red, I could tell she thought the exact opposite about herself. I sat back slowly, torn between sympathy and a strange pang of envy. Because unlike me, or her, Dylan didn't look trapped. He looked like he was exactly where he wanted to be. My sister groaned again, sinking down until her chin nearly touched the table. "Mom, he's gonna see me in this and think I'm totally fro-favoring. He's never gonna talk to me again. This is the worst." Mom set her menu down with a quiet sigh. "Sweetheart, hush! Dylan is a very respectful young gentleman. He wouldn't laugh at you. He wouldn't think less of you." My sister peeked up, still scowling. "He'll think I look ridiculous." "No," Mom said firmly. "He'll think you look pretty. Beautiful, in fact. There's nothing wrong with that. And there's nothing wrong with being in a relationship where both people are beautiful." I blinked, startled by how casually she said it. Mom smiled a little, glancing toward Dylan's table. "Just look at him! Doesn't he look like a prince tonight? As cute as he possibly can be! And you look like you belong in the same story!" My sister's face turned scarlet. "Moon," she hissed. "One day," Mom continued, her tone dreamy now, "maybe the two of you will be homecoming prince and princess. Wouldn't that be something?" My sister buried her face in her hands with a dramatic groan. "Please stop talking." But Mom just chuckled, sipping her water like she hadn't just mortified her completely. I sat silently, my hands folded tight in my lap. For once, it wasn't me under the spotlight, and yet, hearing Mom describe Dylan as a prince made my chest twist in a way I didn't quite understand. Our food arrived a few minutes later, steaming plates set down in front of us. My sister immediately hunched over hers, stabbing at her chicken like it had personally wronged her. Mom thanked the waitress with her usual calm smile, then turned back to us as if nothing in the world could ruin this moment. I picked up my fork and started eating. The first bite grounded me, the flavors pulling me away from the constant swirl of thoughts and embarrassment. For a while, I let the noise of the restaurant and the simple rhythm of chewing be enough. And somewhere between bites, I realized something surprising. The dress didn't feel quite as awful as it had when I first put it on. The lace wasn't scratching me, the tulle wasn't suffocating me, it was just there, switching softly when I shifted, part of the background. Maybe being a little fro-favoring wasn't the end of the world. I thought about the lavender gown glittering in the bag, the yellow sundress from earlier, the way the one-piece swimsuit had hugged me at the pool. They hadn't been as terrible as I'd expected. Weird, yes. Strange, absolutely. But unbearable? Maybe not. I looked down at the soft folds of lavender fabric across my lap and sighed quietly. Maybe this universe wasn't so bad, not for everyone, but even as that thought settled in, another pressed up against it, sharper and heavier. I still hoped Mom would take me out of this reality. Because no matter how much easier it felt now, it wasn't mine. And I wasn't sure it ever could be. I pushed my fork through the last of my meal, hardly tasting it anymore. My sister was still sulking beside me, though she'd slowed down her complaints once her plate was nearly empty. Mom looked perfectly content, sipping her tea, her eyes drifting between us like she was proud of what she saw. When the check came, she paid without hesitation. Then she stood, smoothing her skirt, and motioned for us to follow. I slid out of the booth, the lavender tulle brushing against the edge of the seat. As we walked toward the doors, I kept my eyes low, my sandals clicking softly against the tile. Maybe this universe wasn't so bad. Maybe the dresses and the tights and the fro-favoring life weren't as unbearable as I'd thought. But as the night air met my face outside the restaurant, I clung to one hope. That Mom would still undo all of this one day, and take me back to the world that was really mine. Chapter 8, The Bedroom. The bathroom door slammed shut the second we walked in the house, followed by the hiss of water and my sister's muffled grumbling. She bolted upstairs like she was racing for her life, muttering something about needing to scrub the fro-favoring off. I lingered in the hallway, still in my lavender dress, waiting for my turn. The steam started curling under the bathroom door, carrying the scent of soap into the hall. With nothing else to do, I drifted past her bedroom door. It was half open, so I pushed it gently, peeking inside. For a second, I forgot to breathe. Her room didn't look anything like mine, or even like hers from the old reality. The walls were painted a bold blue, posters of basketball players and teams tacked up in neat rows. A dark blue comforter stretched across the bed, patterned with footballs, baseballs, and basketballs scattered over it. The shelves weren't lined with dolls or stuffed animals, but trophies, sports equipment, and framed photos. I stepped in further, my sandals sinking into the carpet, and studied the dresser. Team pictures lined the top, their frames all tilted at different angles. In each photo, kids stood in neat rows in their uniforms, smiling proudly. What caught my eye, though, was how mixed they were, boys and girls side by side, playing together like it was nothing unusual. In my old world, that would have been strange. Here, it was just normal. And in the background of some of those basketball photos, I noticed the cheerleaders, lined up on the sidelines, pom-poms flashing in midair. Some were girls. Some were boys. Their uniforms frilly and bright, all sequins and ribbons. A whole row of fro-favoring kids cheering just as loudly as the rest. I stood frozen in the middle of her room, staring at the photos, the trophies, the posters. Everything about it marked just how different this reality was. In my old life, this would have been a typical boy's room. Here, it was my sister's. and that difference was enough to make my head spin. I slipped out of my sister's room before the shower cut off, pulling the door closed quietly behind me. My heart was still racing from what I'd seen, the trophies, the photos, the reminder of how different this world really was. Back in my own room, everything looked exactly as it had since Mom snapped her fingers. Light pink walls, curtains with ruffled edges, a comforter with flowers and glittery stars embroidered into the fabric. It was, by all standards, a frill-favoring bedroom. My bedroom, in this universe. I sighed and went to my dresser, pulling open the top drawer. Inside, neatly folded, were my pajamas. Or at least, what passed for pajamas here. The first thing my hand landed on was a nightgown, not just any nightgown, but one plastered with Disney royalty. I held it up, the fabric fluttering between my hands. It was pale pink, decorated with drawings of princes and princesses alike, all of them wearing dresses. Cinderella was there in her sparkling blue gown, right next to Prince Charming, who was wearing a gleaming gold gown that matched hers in elegance. Jasmine's lilac outfit was paired with Aladdin in a flowing white version of the same design. Belle twirled in her golden ball gown, with Beast beside her, except he wasn't the hulking figure I remembered. Instead, he stood tall and slim in a layered blue frilly dress that shimmered across the fabric. Rapunzel smiled in her purple gown, and her love interest, Flynn Rider, though here he barely resembled the one I knew, wore a brown dress, simple and rough, like something from a village peasant. The pattern repeated across the nightgown, the whole thing a parade of dresses. Princes and princesses, all frill-favoring, all smiling. I stared at it, my throat dry. Even the stories I used to know had been rewritten to match this world. There was no escape, not even in fairy tales. And tonight, if I wanted to sleep, this was what I had to wear. The sound of rushing water finally stopped, and a minute later the bathroom door creaked open. My sister stepped out, steam swirling behind her. She changed into her pajamas, plain fit as could be. Just a simple gray t-shirt and loose blue sleep pants, nothing frilly, nothing sparkly. She didn't say a word as she walked past me, her damp hair clinging to her face. She just gave me a glance, then disappeared into her room. I took my chance and slipped into the bathroom, closing the door behind me. Setting the Disney nightgown on the counter, I opened the closet to grab a towel. My shoulders slumped the moment I saw them. No plain white towels, no dark blue ones like I used to know. Instead, stacks of pink towels lined the shelves, each one trimmed with little frills along the edges. I rolled my eyes and muttered under my breath, but I didn't have a choice. I grabbed one and set it near the tub. I undressed, dropping my lavender dress carefully over the counter, and stepped into the tub. I turned the knob, expecting the spray of a shower head, only to hear the gush of water filling the basin beneath me. I froze. A bath, not a shower. For a second, I thought about stopping, but then I noticed the bottles lined neatly along the shelf. One in particular caught my eye, Bubble Bath, the label decorated with glittery pink stars and strawberries. I hesitated only a moment before pouring some under the stream. Almost instantly, the scent filled the air, sweet and heavy, strawberries wrapping around me like a blanket, the water frothed with foam, bubbles piling higher and higher until they touched my arms. I lowered myself into the bath, the warmth soaking into me, the bubbles surrounding me like clouds. I let out a slow breath, leaning back. For the first time all day, I didn't feel the weight of the tights, or the press of tulle, or the constant reminder of how frill-favoring I looked. Just warm water, strawberry-scented bubbles, and quiet. When the water finally cooled and the bubbles melted away into thin patches of foam, I stood and reached for the frilly pink towel. The fabric was softer than any towel I'd ever used, but the little lace edging brushed annoyingly against my skin as I dried off. I pulled the Disney nightgown off the counter and slipped it over my head. The fabric fell loosely around me, brushing my knees, the designs of princes and princesses gleaming faintly in the bathroom light. Everywhere I looked on the soft pink fabric, there was another reminder of this strange world, princes in gowns, princesses in gowns, everyone frill-favoring, everyone smiling like it was the most natural thing in the world. I turned to the mirror and stared. The boy looking back at me wore a nightgown that sparkled with fairy tale dresses, his damp hair clinging to his forehead. He sighed, shoulders sagging, the sound heavy in the quiet bathroom. Am I ever going to wear pants again? The question settled like a stone in my stomach. I pressed a hand against the counter, still staring into the mirror. How long is Mom going to keep me here? How long before she snaps her fingers again and I'm back in my own reality? Or, what if she never does? I looked at the nightgown one more time, the swirl of dresses covering me from shoulder to knee, and sighed again. The thought scared me most of all, that this wasn't temporary. That maybe I was stuck here forever. I lingered there for another moment, staring into the mirror at the boy in the Disney nightgown, surrounded by strawberry-scented steam and the soft pink edges of the towel crumpled on the floor. The reflection didn't look wrong to anyone else in this world. But to me, it felt like I was watching someone else's life unfold, someone else's story being written over mine. I pressed my lips together, shutting my eyes for a beat. Please! Let this end soon! When I opened them again, the boy in the nightgown was still there, staring back. Chapter 9, Lessons. I left the bathroom in a cloud of strawberry-scented steam, the Disney princes and princesses nightgown swishing softly around my knees. My damp hair clung to my forehead as I padded down the hall, my bare feet sinking into the carpet. When I pushed my bedroom door open, I stopped short. Mom was sitting on the edge of my bed, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her eyes calm and steady. She looked like she'd been waiting for me. I crossed the room quietly and tossed my dirty clothes into the laundry basket, the tights and lavender dress slipping to the bottom in a heap. When I turned back, Mom stood and gently closed the door until it clicked shut behind her. Then she looked at me with that knowing smile. "Have you learned anything today?" she asked softly. I hesitated, staring at the floor. My fingers twisted the hem of my nightgown. But finally, I nodded. "Yes," I said quietly. Her head tilted just slightly. "And what is it you've learned, sweetheart?" I took a deep breath, my mind flicking back over the day, the swimsuit clinging at the pool, the lavender dress at the mall, the strawberry bath, the frilly towel, the way my sister sulked and fought while I tried to make sense of it all. What I said next would matter. I shifted from one foot to the other, the hem of my nightgown brushing against my legs as I searched for the words. Finally, I looked up at Mom. "I guess I learned that being frill-favoring isn't always so bad," I admitted, my voice soft but steady. "I mean, the swimsuit at the pool wasn't terrible. And the lavender dress? I didn't like it at first, but after a while, it wasn't the end of the world. Even this," I tugged lightly at the fabric of the nightgown, the princes and princesses smiling across it. "It's weird, but it's not as awful as I thought it would be." Mom's eyes softened, her smile warm but patient, like she was letting me take my time. I swallowed hard, feeling heat rise to my face. And I was mean to my sister this morning. Back before all this, before the world changed. I made fun of her for being girly, like it was something bad. I thought I'd never have to deal with it myself, so I didn't care if it hurt her feelings. The words caught in my throat, but I forced them out. But now I know what it feels like to be girly. Or, I caught myself, glancing at her. In this world, frill-favoring. And it's not fair to tease someone for that. I get it now. It's not easy. And if we ever go back, I'll respect her more. I'll never make fun of her for liking dresses or skirts again. Because I know what it's like." Mom's smile deepened, a look of quiet pride in her eyes. She reached forward and brushed a damp strand of hair off my forehead, her touch gentle. "That," she said softly, "is a very important lesson." For the first time all day, I felt a little lighter, as if admitting it, saying it out loud, had eased some of the weight pressing on my chest. Mom stayed quiet for a moment, her hand still resting lightly on my shoulder, then she sat down again on the edge of the bed, her gaze soft but serious. "You know why I did this, don't you?" she asked gently. I shook my head, my fingers tugging nervously at the edge of my nightgown. "Not really. I mean, I've had guesses, but not the real reason." She nodded slowly, her eyes thoughtful. I did it because you needed to see things differently. You were so sure this morning that you'd never wear anything fro-favoring, that it was silly or embarrassing, and that your sister was somehow less because she liked it. That wasn't fair to her, sweetheart. And it wasn't fair to you, either. Because it closed you off. Her words stung a little, but they rang true. She reached over and squeezed my hand. This wasn't easy for you, I know that. You had to step into a whole new world and learn new ways of being yourself. And that's not something most people could handle without a fight. But you took it like a champ. I blinked at her. A champ? Yes, she said firmly. Because even though it was hard, you tried. You kept going. And you've already learned something important, respect. For yourself, for your sister, for anyone who chooses plain fit or fro-favoring. That kind of lesson is worth a little discomfort. Her smile softened again. I know this hasn't been easy for you. But sometimes, the hardest lessons are the ones that help us grow the most. I looked down at the nightgown, the Disney princes and princesses twirling across the fabric. Maybe she was right. It hadn't been easy. It still wasn't easy. But I was starting to see what she meant. Mom stood and pulled the blanket back, motioning for me to climb in. I slid under the covers, the nightgown rustling softly against the sheets. She tucked the blanket around me, smoothing it down like she used to when I was younger. As she leaned closer, I hesitated. The question slipped out before I could stop it. Mom! Are we going to be in this reality much longer? She paused, looking down at me with that calm, steady expression. That depends, she said gently. Do you feel ready to return to your own reality? Or, do you think you'd like to stay here a little longer? I stared at the ceiling, my chest tight. I'm not sure, I admitted. Part of me wants to go back. But, part of me thinks I still have more to learn here. Mom smiled, brushing a hand over my damp hair. That's an honest answer. And that's all I ask from you. She reached for the lamp on my bedside table. Tomorrow is another day. We'll see where it takes you. With a soft click, the light went out, and the room plunged into darkness. I closed my eyes, the scent of strawberry still lingering faintly on my skin, and let sleep pull me under. Chapter 10, A New Morning. I blinked awake to soft sunlight streaming through my window. Shadows stretched across the floor, the quiet hum of morning filling the air. For a moment, I braced myself, half expecting the sight of pink walls, frilly curtains, and a glittery comforter. But when I sat up, my breath caught. The walls weren't pink. They were a soft white, just like they'd always been. My shelves were lined with sports memorabilia again, baseball gloves, trophies, a stack of trading cards. My comforter was dark blue, patterned with footballs and baseballs, and my dresser was back where it belonged. Heart racing, I threw the blanket back. No nightgown. No frills. Just a pair of familiar sleep shorts and a t-shirt. Real pajamas. My pajamas. I scrambled to the laundry basket, my chest tightening. No lavender dress. No white tights. No underwear that looked like it belonged to my sister. Just my usual clothes, jumbled in a heap. It was all normal. I hurried out of my room, bounding down the stairs two at a time, relief bubbling in my chest, until I stopped it at halfway down the hall. There, in the kitchen doorway, stood my sister. She was wearing the same girly outfit she'd had on yesterday morning, ribbons in her hair, skirt swishing as she leaned against the counter. I froze, my throat dry. What's going on? Before I could say a word, Mom appeared beside me. She touched a finger to her lips, then leaned close, her voice low so only I could hear. I restarted the day, she whispered. And I expect you to make a better choice this time. My chest tightened, but I understood. I nodded. I will. With that, I walked into the kitchen. My sister looked up, already smirking like she was daring me to make fun of her. Instead, I smiled. You look nice, I said simply. That outfit suits you. Her smirk faltered, confusion flickering across her face. For once, she didn't have a quick comeback. Mom's smile, though, was brighter than the morning sun. My sister blinked at me, her mouth half open like she was waiting for a punchline. But none came. I just kept smiling at her. "You really think so?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Yeah," I said with a small shrug. "I do." For the first time in forever, she didn't roll her eyes or hurl an insult back. Instead, a faint smile tugged at the corner of her mouth, quick and almost shy. Mom set a plate of pancakes down on the table, her eyes twinkling as she glanced between us. "Now that's more like it," she said warmly. "Much better." We all sat down together, the smell of syrup filling the kitchen, sunlight pouring in through the windows. And as breakfast began, everything felt different, not because the world had changed, but because I had. For the first time, I'd made the better choice.